Hey everybody, Scott Marsh here with another episode of All Things Music. Today I have a good friend of mine and our special guest here, Mr. Mark Russo.
What's up, y'all?
So thanks so much for coming and doing this with me, Mark.
Absolutely, man.
Mark is a trumpet player extraordinaire here, and he's an educator, a husband, a father. So he's well versed also in our topic of conversation, which is obviously why I had him on today, which is music business. Obviously, we're not going to cover everything that involves that. Because that would be an extensive video. But we're going to touch on just a few topics that we just felt, and I've been thinking about a lot lately, and that Mark and I have talked about, things that have been going on recently. So and some of these may be simple and maybe geared towards beginners, and some are geared towards maybe somebody who's a little more seasoned. Right. So we have some topics here. We're just going to get to it. The first subtopic here is like getting a gig, right? So first, Mark, what are your thoughts on the first steps and the first processes when you're looking to get a gig?
I think mostly what you want to do is you want to have something that's marketable. You want to have an idea of a specific project that you're doing. Here's a great case in point. On October 25th, I'm doing a show at Nighttown, which is going to be the music of Horace Silver.
Okay, great.
And in the past, I've done projects at Nighttown too. One was the music of Kenny Dorham and Blue Mitchell. I think when you have something that's like packageable like that, it makes it more marketable for the venue to sell. I mean, obviously, at the end of the night, they're looking for a profit.
Right.
So I think that when you have something that you can sell to them or something that they could promote in a way that's going to draw clientele in, I think that's the first step, is to have something that's packaged really nice. Then I think the next thing is to have a good rapport around town with venues, and making sure that
Sure.
the club owners and that you get along with them, that you transversely go support the club.
There's a lot to be said for that, because if they don't ever see you there, they're not going to be as likely to want you to come and play there.
Exactly.
Unless you're some national act, obviously. But if you're local, then yeah, you have to go out and support your fellow artists and support those clubs, to get your foot in the door.
Right, exactly. They're like, Gabe at the Bop Stop, him and I are really good friends. We met back in the day when he was working at Nighttown. So I have a good relationship with him. I have a good relationship with the guys at Blue. I think that's a great place to start in establishing getting work there. I think the third thing that you need to have is a good sense of professionalism too. Making sure that you're on time, that your product, that your project or whatever it is well polished. I mean, you don't want to go in there sounding like crap, obviously. You don't want that for yourself as a musician, but you don't want that. The club owner doesn't want that either.
Right.
So making sure that you have something that's really good, and you're professional about how you handle yourself. How you negotiate fees for the band, how you negotiate the amount of time that you're going to play on a gig, whether you're going to do, I don't know, like 2 long sets or 3 short sets, or however you're going to do it, whatever. Who you have on the gig, making sure that you're hiring consummate professionals to help make that product even better. So
right, and not only make it better, but having the right people in place is also going to make you look better. Right, and making sure that nobody's going to be there that's going to possibly embarrass you as a band leader.
Ultimately, you want to get called back.
Right, right. Yeah. So and you mentioned this, so we'll kind of skip down to a little bit. You talked about negotiating a price and stuff. What should you charge? How much should you accept? I know that's kind of a broad stroke, but when you approach those kind of things, or how do you approach those kind of things?
There's 2 ways to look at it. There's the whole union scale thing. You could say, okay, well, if it was a union job, what would the union guys be making? Per hour, per gig, whatever it is.
Right.
That's one way to look at it and kind of base it. The other thing is you want to kind of base it off of, like, what the going market rate is for other people in the area. What are these other cats getting for a 4-hour gig or 3-hour gig or whatever it is. I really can't say that there's a specific price tag to put on it. Everybody's different. I will say this, like trying to do your services for an extended period of time for nothing kind of hurts. It kind of hurts the market. It kind of makes things
right. It not only hurts you, but it hurts everybody else.
Right. Yeah, because then you got guys that I could get this guy to do it and come in and do it. He'll do it for nothing. And it's like, okay, you gotta be careful, because the old adage, you get what you pay for, is still kind of applies to this.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes too, when you first get into a venue, if it's your first time at a venue, sometimes it may be a lower rate than if you know somebody who's been there multiple times.
Right, because they want to try you out.
Yeah, they're trying you out. So you can, you're going to work with them. But don't, the one thing that I've learned is don't sell yourself short when you go to do that negotiating, right? So when they say, okay, so how much would you guys charge? Tell them what you think you want. Mm-hmm. Right? If you do that and they kind of say, well, we'll work with you, whatever, they're going to lowball you back.
Right.
And
you're going to meet somewhere in the middle.
Right. So, But if you start at the top, at least, hopefully, it'll land closer to the top.
On the same side of that, though, you can't go into, and this is this is a topic of conversation between musicians everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like you're going and you have like certain bands that are playing that are getting like big bands that are getting like $20 a guy for like a weekly thing or whatever. And I'm not talking locally, I'm talking like nationally. Like I'm talking, Village Vanguard kind of stuff, And then you have like these large groups that are playing like at the Blue Note or things like that are getting like a lot more money. Okay, so it's a matter of draw. So like a lot of these venues, if they've established a place like that, okay, well they know, okay, I can rely on so-and-so to get, seats filled. Well, if I can, if I can fill those seats, he's obviously worth $1,000 for a Friday night hit.
Right.
Or something like that. Off the top of my head. But you get the idea. So, I mean, I think it depends on how you look at it from the venue standpoint, too, because, again, not only are you in business for yourself, but the venue's in business for themselves, too.
Absolutely.
And I think with a lot of musicians around here, I can pretty much say it's safe to say that there's like different pay scales for clubs. Like you definitely get like a lower pay on like your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday gigs as opposed to like your Friday and Saturday gigs. Right, well, those are prime time. Right. Those are prime time, prime spots, and those merit more money.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
So
some of these we could talk on for just that subject alone. We could talk on for an hour.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, that's all good stuff. This may be obvious, but to some of the beginners, any thoughts on the types of venues you should go after when you're looking for a gig?
That's a great question. You know what? You got to look at what the venue services. Okay, so for example, like I play, like most of my music that I play is jazz-oriented stuff. So I'm not going to go to the Hard Rock and ask them to book me as a jazz group. They're going to look at me like I have 3 heads, right? So you want to start with whatever music you are, or genre of music you are accustomed to playing. So, in my case, like if I'm going to book a gig, I'm going to look at places like Blue Jazz, I'm going to look at the Bop Stop, I'm going to look at Nighttown, I'm going to look at the Mustard Seed Market. Those are places I'm going to start with. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that like people aren't looking for other music or other forms of music.
Right.
You'd be surprised at who's looking for live music. So, if you start with those places, at least you got your foot in the door and you know these are established jazz clubs. They specify and 90% of their music is jazz.
Right.
And you know that what you're going to bring to the table is going to be accepted by the people and the audiences that are there.
Right.
Okay? And fair statement.
Right. And for anybody out there who happens to watch this who's not from the Cleveland area, all those clubs he was talking about are like
they're all local
Ohio,
clubs. Right.
Northeast Ohio. But yeah, I mean, obviously, venues that have other groups that produce the same type of music or genre of music that you're doing are great. Also, and this may also be obvious, but sometimes it's going to be based off of the size of your group, right? So,
oh yeah, absolutely.
I have an ensemble called Bonafide. It's 5 trombones, a rhythm section. I'm not going to play at the Mustard Seed probably.
Right.
It's going to be too small. It's going to be too loud for that venue. So you don't want to waste your time, trying to go after venues that just don't make sense.
Well, to piggyback off of that too, it depends on what kind of project you're doing. For you, in that project, that's like something that is like a bop stop or like a bigger venue oriented ensemble.
Right.
Where if I wanted to do like a duo with me and like a piano or a guitar player, that opens me up to a lot more options.
That's true. That's true.
But do I want to do that project all the time is the next question.
Right.
Right. How much of that duo music do I want to pursue? Here's a case in point. I was doing, there's a great bassist by the name of Alan Gleghorn that I was doing a duet with at the Aurora Inn in Aurora on the corner 82 and 306. And we held that gig down every Friday for 6 months. It was unbelievable that I was actually had a steady gig every Friday.
Right.
But, I mean, the venue, honest to God, if it was 150 square feet, I mean, it was very small in terms of how the room was set up. So Alan and I, we sat in the corner. He just played a bass, and he played totally acoustic. He didn't even use an amp. Okay, so that place calls for something like that. You really couldn't do anything bigger in there.
Right.
There's no way on earth you could do anything bigger. You couldn't even do a trio.
Yeah.
So in that case, that's something that if you're looking to do that, there's probably more options in terms of what you can do.
Right, and so if you have multiple projects going on of different styles or different size of groups or whatever, that makes you more marketable as a player.
Exactly.
Because you have more opportunities there.
Exactly.
So, you kind of touched on this quickly, and we can move quicker through it, but is there any value in playing for free, whether it's as a leader or as a sideman? Now I asked that, it's not a joke, but it's funny because there are groups that both you and I play in or have played in that basically it's like, hey, you get a drink at the bar and that's what you get,
Right.
Usually those are bigger groups for us, at least big bands, but it happens in small groups too sometimes. Is there any value in that, and if so, what is the value?
I think there is value to it, and I think the value in question is the amount of or the caliber of musicians you're playing with.
Sure.
Okay, so if we're doing a big band or whatever, and it's like me and you and a couple of the other cats that we normally hang out with, and we know the hang is going to be great,
right?
And we all know that we're going to make great music. There's a lot of value in that in doing it. Okay.
Right.
Now, that being said, you have to kind of weigh the options of what it takes in order to make that free gig happen. Okay, are you traveling an hour to get there to play? Okay, are you doing this from a standpoint that you want to try and make something happen in terms of your own inner practice? Are you working on something specific that you've done it in the practice room, and this is kind of like
an opportunity
to try it or test it out.
Right.
Those are ways you can think about it. The bottom line is we are professionals, and we're doing a service to somebody as an audience member, and this is what we do for a living, so we should be compensated for it in such ways. But that's a totally different topic. But when you look at it from that standpoint, I think if you can find a little bit of value for it, if the hang's good, if the cats that you're playing with are good, if you know you're going to get together and you're going to make really good music together, I think that
so the value is,
I don't want to say it outweighs the money portion of it,
but the value is an inner value. It's not a value really for the market or for what you're doing later, but like we talked about, but it's a value for yourself as a musician.
Right.
So
and then the other thing is it's another good networking thing too, where you get out there and You're
Absolutely.
playing with cats, and it's like, oh man, we should make music together, and then that leads to something that potentially could pay.
Right. Or somebody in the audience can approach you and say, "Hey, are you available for XYZ?" So
yeah, I mean, you can compare this to, making music. Do you put it on Spotify, or do you try and sell it on your own?
Right, and we're going to talk about that here soon.
Yeah, right. So
cool. So that was kind of getting a gig. Now we're going to move on to, you've got the gig, right? You've done the work, it's booked. Now we're going to promote your gig, right? Because in this day and age, you really have to be into self-promotion. So when and where do you tend to advertise your gigs?
I advertise a lot of my stuff on my website, which is markrusso.com, and I have all my bookings and stuff listed there under my schedule page. Mm-hmm. I use social media a lot, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, things like that. It's kind of a catch-22 because you want to try and get a lot of people to follow you, so they can see stuff like that, but you want to be interesting enough that you have people that follow you. So I think I read a study on this like a couple years ago that it takes, for Google to pick you up as a search, you need to be posting something to the internet at least 7 or 8 times a week.
Right.
In order for it to come up in a search and a hit. You need to be active. Your name needs to be in some kind of form out there so you can get some kind of active hit. Okay, now, if you only post something 8 times a week, well, what if you post 16 times a week? Or what if you post 32 times a week? Or 64 times a week? I mean, it's the more you post, obviously, that the search engine is going to pick it up more.
Right.
But trying to get your name out there in terms of social media is a great way to kind of promote yourself. I mean, there is a thin line between, promoting yourself and, going too far as people think that you're kind of conceited in nature.
Right, yeah. And there's a fine line also that I found on kind of when, so say you have a gig and it's X months away on when you start that process. If
Correct.
you start it too early, you're going to get an influx of responses, and then it's going to die out all the way until
and people
the end.
will forget about it totally.
And they'll forget about it. If you start too late, you won't get enough. You won't get the ball rolling fast enough, right? There won't be enough time. So there is kind of an art there as well that you'll have to learn, and you go through that. I like to do things where, if it's a couple months out or 3 months out, I'll kind of just hit it once and just say, hey, this is coming, just,
Right.
Check back for more info, maybe not give them a whole lot, just give them a little taste. And then as we get closer, actually create that Facebook event.
Right.
And try to build.
Well, the other thing too is like, where do you want all that traffic to go?
Right.
Like for me, like if I put something on Facebook or Twitter, I always link my website to, because I want people to go to my website, because I want them to see not only the one event that I'm doing, but the other events that I'm doing for the rest of the month, rest of the year, whatever.
Right.
Okay? So now they have more access to all of my music instead of one project.
Absolutely.
And then, I also want them to go to my website to see, photos and buy a CD and things like that. I'm trying to get all that traffic there. So It depends on where you want that traffic to go. Do you want it to go to your Facebook page? Maybe you do. I don't know. That's up to you as an individual, what you feel like you get more traffic to.
Right, absolutely. No,
I can tell you right now that, and this is by no means no dig on anybody, but, I get more likes on posting something about the Cleveland Indians than I actually do about posting about any of my musical gigs. And we've all been in the same situation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like you post something stupid and all of a sudden it's got like 72 likes, and
you post a gig and it's got 1.
Yeah, exactly.
It's your life.
And I've had instances where I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, "Oh, when are you playing next? When are you playing next? I want to come check you out. And I want to listen."
Right.
And it's like, "Oh, well, I'm playing here, and here, and here," and they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll check it out," and then they never show up.
Right. Yeah.
And it
good
doesn't-
intentions, but
right, they have great intentions, and who knows what happens? I mean, anything can happen last minute.
yeah.
I guess the bottom line of that is you just got to be persistent with it. You can't take it as a negative dig that they didn't show up because it's something you did or something you said or they don't like your music. It's just, you know, we're all busy. I mean, we all have busy lives, you know?
And there are some other ways to do this too. So you can kind of do the old school ways too, because they still kind of work. You know, you can make sure that it's in the newspaper, right? The local newspapers. It doesn't cost a lot of money, and some will even list it for free.
Right.
A lot of the venues will have their events listed anyways. But sometimes the guys at the paper, they don't, you know, the people at the paper, they don't always like pay attention, and so some things get missed sometimes. So you got to make sure that it's in the paper at least the week before or the week of, right? There's usually I guess usually, but almost every major city I've ever been in or been around, there's somebody somewhere that hosts some type of jazz calendar for that area.
Right.
You know, there's one here in Cleveland. I know there's one in Chicago. So, you know, get in contact with that person, give them your information so they can put it on their jazz calendar. You know, so it's there. So there are ways to do that as well. And this kind of leads me into the next part of this promoting your gig, which is, should you spend any money on advertising? And I'll quickly say before you jump in, Mark, is that for me, and in my regular day job, I'm pretty well versed in Facebook marketing, and so I go ahead and do that on my gigs. I'll put just for even $5 or $10, but really even $5 the week of your gig. You can pick specific zip codes if you want, or
target audience.
Target audience.
Right.
To really kind of just boost your post and put it out there, you will get some people to show up that you didn't think were going to show up.
See, I've never done that before. I was always leery about that. You know, because I've heard negative stories that people say, oh well, you know, I spent X number of dollars and it only showed up like 2 or 3 times or whatever. I mean, that's, you know, like I said, I have to experience it for myself. I don't know. Yeah. You know, it could be different for me. Who knows?
It's based on a lot of things. I won't get into everything I know about Facebook, but you know, it's going to tell you nowadays the way they have it. You put your dollar amount in there, and it's going to tell you how many potential reaches you have.
Yeah, right.
It'll say, you know, hey, 1,200 to 3,500. You know, in a specific target, you know, date range. You know.
Yeah.
And then again, you choose if you want them to just click through your Facebook page, or if you want them to go to your website, or whatever, right? But I feel that it really helps, and so it's something out there you should look into.
I think I'll actually try that with this Horace Silver gig that I'm doing at nighttime.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I mean, like just you know, what's $5? You know, in terms of that.
Exactly, it's not a whole lot, and you know, so it's worth checking into on a different, well, same topic. But if anybody out there who watches this wants to know more, just message me or something on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll help you out with it, and you know, get you all squared away. So
yeah,
but cool. All right, so you got the gig, you promoted the gig. Hopefully, you did well, and you're asked back.
Well, let's back up. Let me talk about promotion. One more thing about promoting too. So, you know, as far as promotion goes. Should you spend money or shouldn't you spend money?
Right. Sorry.
You know, I look at it both ways. It depends on what kind of money you want to spend. Do you want to spend it in print media? And do you want to hang flyers all over the place? I mean, I know people who have done that and been successful.
Sure.
I know people who have done that and not been successful.
Yeah.
Do you want to spend it like on Facebook? You know, okay, so if you're going to spend, let's say you're going to go to Kinko's and spend $50 on flyers. Right. Okay, well, you know, how many people are you going to reach with flyers as opposed to $50 on Facebook? You could probably potentially reach 100,000 people.
Right.
You're not going to reach 100,000 people with flyers. I can guarantee that.
Right.
In today's nowadays,
that's not going to be the case.
So that's something you got to weigh the options of, like, okay, you know, how is this going to be the most cost effective for me?
Right.
Like I said, I've never really done Facebook ads like you have, but that might be something that I'm willing to try. You know?
Right. Yeah. So you have to be willing to know: do I want to spend any money? If I do, how much? You know, and I mean, listen, I'm not suggesting that you get carried away with it and you spend your whole gig pay on it just to get people to show up, but you know, everybody is different, you know.
So another thing I look at too is, like, a lot of the clubs that you're playing at, they're going to promote in conjunction with what you're promoting too. And it kind of goes back to that whole first question you asked me about club owners. If you have a good connection and a good establishment with that club owner, he's going to promote you in a way that's going to be beneficial to both the club and to the project you're doing.
Right.
Transversely, you're going to promote the club and yourself in that way because you know that you have this good relationship with
You're helping each other out,
and you're both in there for the same cause.
And I will say that I've been asked by, people who are doing the booking for some of these clubs. I've been asked, when on the first time, hey, I would like to play here. Here's my group. Here's my project. Here's what we're doing.
Do you have a following?
And they'll say, do you have a following?
Yeah, right.
And how are you going to self-promote?
Right.
They'll ask you those questions, so be prepared to answer them. With something at least. You ready to move on?
Yeah. Let's go.
Great.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about a different part of music business. We're going to talk about making an album.
Okay.
Mark, recently, you can self-promote there. Mark recently, I just happen to have it on my piano. He recently made an album called New Affirmation, and so he has some unique perspective. And I made an album a couple years ago with a trombone band, and so I have some info too that I'll share. And we're just gonna hit some more of these kind of topics.
Yeah, sure.
So let's just quickly go over, just a little overview of costs and thoughts on those costs. Maybe there's a tip on how to reduce the cost, or things that you don't need to pay for that everybody tells you need to pay for, or something like that. So.
Okay. Well, if you want to reduce the cost, self-record it yourself.
Right.
Like get a MacBook, get some microphones, and do it that way.
Okay.
I mean, you can do a lot with that if you know how to do that kind of stuff.
Right.
Now, there's a cost associated with the microphones and the equipment.
And Pro Tools and whatever.
Right. So you put that stuff up front, it seems like a lot of money, but you do 5 albums and all of a sudden the equipment's paid for itself kind of thing, right? Okay, as opposed to going in the studio. Now, there are ways, so when I did my project, I approached it from this standpoint. I sat down and I made a budget I called around the studios and find out how much studio time. Studio time is anywhere from $55 to $65 an hour, depending on the studio. On average, I would say that's probably what it is. Right. So you start there. You got to figure out how much time you want for the studio. Some studios give you a better rate if you do what's called a lockout, where you rent the studio for like a 12-hour period or something like that. And they'll give you a discounted rate because they know that you're guaranteed to be there for X number of hours.
Right.
That's one way you can cut costs. The other way, what I did is I went through and looked at studio time. I went through and looked at how much time it's going to cost me to mix and master it afterwards, because that's still included as studio time.
Right.
In some cases, unless you mix it and master it someplace off-site, which is another possibility.
A separate cost.
A separate person. Well, not a separate cost, but a separate person. Now, it could be the same cost. It could be more. It could be less. You have to shop around.
Right.
And again, you get what you pay for.
Yes.
You get what you pay for. So don't think that you're going to... Mixing and mastering the album is what sells the album. That's the magic in it. So if you're going to cut corners, don't cut it there.
I agree.
Don't cut it on mixing and mastering.
Right.
Okay. I recorded my album at Clockwork Studios in Rocky River. I mixed it there as well, and then I actually sent it off to get it mastered by a guy named James Driscoll, who owns a recording studio in Dallas, on a recommendation of a friend, to have him master it, and it was great. I mean, he was like awesome. And
quickly, just for those who, and again, this may be common knowledge, but for those who don't know the difference between mixing and mastering, really quickly, a little, analogy that I, learned was mixing is taking your good product, but let's just say it's like a blurry television, and they make it clean, okay? Mastering is adding the color, right? So it's black and white and it's blurry, and you mix it, and it's black and white, but it's a perfect picture, and then mastering is adding color. So just so you can have an idea of how, the differences between the two.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the recording engineer will be happy to do the mixing. A lot of times they don't want to do the mastering because they only do mixing. So just be aware of that. So
yeah, so it's like 720p versus 4K.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But anyways, so I did all that. That's how I did that, and you got to shop around. You got to shop around for studios because you don't want to do a jazz album in a rock studio.
Right.
Okay. You don't want to have some guy who mixed, the latest, hip hop album, mixing your jazz album, or mastering it. You want to have people that are pretty savvy in the genre of music that you're doing.
Right. Almost like picking your venue when you pick your, like we talked about for Git.
Exactly.
Make sure that you pick your studio just like, and if you don't know things that they've done, it's not, rude to ask for, examples.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, when I did decide to go to Clockwork, I actually called the guy up and I actually went to the studio and I made him show me around the studio because I wanted to see, how things were going to be placed in the studio. I wanted to know where the piano was and the drums were and the bass and all that. I wanted to know where all that stuff was going to be. And that's a topic for another discussion, but, don't be afraid to, when you pick a studio, say, hey man, can I come down and check out your place? If they say no, then you go to the next place.
Right.
There's anybody who's going to say, no, I don't want you to come check it out, is going to be kind of jive.
Yeah, not going to be worth your time.
So getting back to the cost thing, so that was the first thing I did. I shopped the studio, the mixing, and the mastering. Okay, so I got those three things. And then the next thing I looked at was the musicians. I had a lot of the musicians that played on New Affirmation they're all friends of mine, but I wasn't expecting them to do it for free. So I still wanted to give them something, some kind of compensation. Whatever we negotiated, a couple of friends were like, I'll do it for this much, and they're still, saying they're doing it for a specific amount, but, it's not like I'm calling, Joe Lovano in to play on my album and, his fee is like $3,000, we're not talking like that, but, if you have a lot of friends that are interested in your project and making music, there's a good way that you can maybe shave some money off. If you're looking for heavy hitters to play, some people will be more than happy to do it for you for a specific fee. They have a flat fee that they do for recording, no matter how much time it takes. Sometimes they do it by the hour. You'd have to talk to those people, But a lot of times, I would say more times than not, you have a lot of people who are cool with contributing to making music for you or helping you make music. I mean, that's ultimately the goals. What we're trying to do is trying to make music, right?
Right. And it's a tool for them. I mean, listen, if you're a sideman on somebody's album, it's again,
getting your name out there,
promoting yourself, making yourself more marketable. So that's important, to if somebody asks you and they're a good friend, be gentle.
Right.
Right. And that's you're making a lot of great points here about cost and don't get too caught up in feeling like you have to spend a ton of money. There are ways to make sure, and shopping and doing all the things you have to do, talking to people and helping yourself out to make sure that you kind of keep that under control.
Right. And I will say this, when I made New Affirmation, well, I'm going to get to the album artwork and stuff in a second, but I budgeted for X amount of time in the studio. And I didn't know, being my first project, I didn't know how much time I was going to need.
Right.
Okay? So, let's just make the math even. If you're doing $50 an hour, and you're in the studio for 10 hours, I mean, do the math.
Right.
Right. So if you're in there for 10 hours, 2 days a week, okay, you're at $1,000 now.
Right.
And that's a lot of money for studio time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I mean, if you think about it, your goal is to probably try and get maybe 2 or 3 takes of a tune in a half hour. I remember when I did New Affirmation, we did one song on here. It was the Upper Echelon. It's kind of like a fusion tune. We spent a little bit more time on it than I wanted to in the studio, and I did actually go over my budget that I had set for myself in the studio. Luckily, I had enough money in the account to cover it,
Right.
but I would have rather have spent that other places.
Right.
But again, the mixing and the mastering are like the most important thing. So, was I mad that I went over budget with that? Kind of. Did I really get really upset about it? No, not really, because I knew that I had done things right the first time.
Right, and that brings up a point too, because especially if you're going the first time, you don't know how long it's going to take.
Right.
And let me tell you, it's no matter, some things like when we did ours, we would play a tune and I'd be like, okay, 2 takes, that was more than enough. Or maybe even, hey, you know what, we got it in the first take.
Yeah, right.
Or, and I thought to myself, man, I thought that tune was going to take a lot longer, and then you play a tune that you think, oh, we're gonna get this in the bag. It's gonna be quick, and then 3, 4, 5 takes.
Yeah.
And so be prepared for that. But also, to go back to, this is another thing, right? If you're going to get a gig, you talked about making sure that your product is polished. The same thing before you go in the recording studio. You probably don't want to be rehearsing unless there's a certain caliber of player. You probably don't want to be rehearsing in the recording studio, wasting your studio time on it.
Oh, absolutely.
You want to have it down.
Absolutely.
You're fine tuning in the studio, right? So you want to make sure that this isn't the first read or things like that. Now, when we talk about high level players, they may very well do that, but that's a different ballpark.
That's a different scenario, right?
Yeah, that's a different thing. So there are different options out there for you.
I mean, I was very fortunate that I had a good friend of mine, a local jazz saxophonist in the area, Bobby Salvaggio. I actually had him produce my album, and that was like the most saving grace. Actually, Bobby was the one who came up and told me, "I'm going to produce your album," because. Well, he knew that I had a good project here,
right?
And he knew. And Bobby's a very big advocate for. He's a big advocate for jazz education and jazz, and making the jazz scene unified in the sense that everybody's kind of playing on everybody's projects. We're all intertwined in some way. So it was good. I mean, he's got like 10 albums, maybe 12 albums under his belt now.
Sure. Yeah.
It was like a no-brainer to have him be a producer for me, and it was so much stress taken off of me that I could just concentrate on making music. I didn't have to worry about this and this and this because I knew it was in good hands. Hey man, we need to go back and do a take again because the rhythm section was dragging, or whatever. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up, but to have that kind of stuff. Right. You don't have to worry about that. Man.
He's going to catch all for you. He's going to say, no, that was good, don't worry about it. Even if you're like, oh, was that good enough? Should we take our take? He's going to be able to say, no, that was good, let's put it away, let's move on. Or, yeah, we need to go back and do that. So.
Which saves you money. If you got somebody who knows what's going on,
right?
From the producing standpoint, somebody in the booth, it's going to save you a lot of money because it's going to save you a lot of time.
Absolutely. So, you're making an album. How difficult is it to get a label? How difficult is it to self-release? I know everybody would love to have a label pick up their album, and we all try, but sometimes it can be very difficult because they're getting, I can imagine the amount of albums that they're getting sent their way, right? So we're not really going to talk about how you stand out to do that because that's a different topic, but what are the difficulties on both sides of that, of getting a label and of kind of self-releasing?
Well, all right, let's talk about the label first because I went through the same dilemma when I was trying to shop New Affirmation around. I had called a couple. Well, first of all, let me start with this. Once your album gets put on, once you go through and get all the material for your album, I did it all through a company called Disc Makers. Once your album gets all finished and completed, and those tunes get digitized or whatever, you have all these record producers coming out of the woodwork. Like I had people from like all over, like emailing me and calling me and stuff like that, you know. And you got to be careful because a lot of these people are looking for like a quick, you know, way to get
right.
a promotion thing, you know.
Right.
So here's a case where I was given a label by a drummer that I know, and they're in Colorado. He said, "Call this. This is the guy that does my label. You know, call him and see what he can do for you." I said, "Okay." So I called him. Said, "Hey, you know, I'm so and so from Cleveland. I have this album that I'm doing. Here's the project. I can send you some snippets of some music, you know, so you can get an idea about if you feel this will fit your label or not, because that's another thing. You got to make sure the music you're doing fits the label that you're trying to get on." And I'll get to that in a second. So this guy's like, "Yeah, your music fits. We're kind of looking for like modern jazz kind of thing. I need you to pay me $5,000 in order to market X number of discs, X number of radio plays, and X number of whatever." And I'm like, well, I didn't have $5,000 to do that, you know?
Not many people do. Just
right. I mean, but okay, so if I had $5,000, what would that have gotten me? Well, okay, that would have gotten me 1,000 albums, 1,000 physical copies. It would have guaranteed me play back on, I think he said 25, no, it was like 50 national radio stations, okay, plus Sirius XM's Real Jazz station. And it would have guaranteed me like a big place in their catalog and on their website and things like that. And it's like, okay, man, do I need to spend $5,000 to do that? Can I do that myself and maybe do it for $1,000?
Right.
You know,
right.
so that's where you got to start weighing. Now, as far I had a friend, a good friend named Eric Surveld, who lives in who just recently moved to New York, and he just finished up an album, and he was shopping for a label. And there are good benefits to having a label attached to your product.
Sure.
You know, it shows that people are interested. It shows other people that you actually have a good thing, because, you know, let's take the Blue Note label for example. You know, the Blue Note label is not going to put out, you know, crappy music.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
There's a specific polished product they are looking for. You know, and if I give you my disc and then you turn it over and it says, "Oh, Blue Note," oh, well, you know it's got to be something good, because they're not going to put anything in crappy.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that being said, if you look at it from that standpoint, and somebody gives you a label, you got to think about what this label has to offer in terms of what you're bringing to their table too.
Right.
A lot of times you're paying a label to market your music is essentially what you're doing. He actually, I can't remember what label he got on, but he got on a pretty decent good label that's in the jazz idiom, and they worked out a pretty good deal with the amount of units he was going to sell, how much money he was going to have. Oh, that's another thing about this other Colorado unit. They wanted to buy all my rights to my music. They wanted me to sell all my rights to my music to them, which means I have this disc with all this music and I don't own any of it anymore. So you got to be careful about that.
Right.
So that's the marketing side for it. There are, you know, labels that you have to buy into a little bit more than some others. You just got to shop it around. Mm-hmm. Like I said, you got to make sure that the music matches the genre of the label that you're trying to get on. Some labels are strictly modern jazz, some are free jazz, some are like post bebop, modern bebop, whatever you want to call it. You know, does your product fit that mold?
Right.
Self-promoting it. I decided to go the self-promotion route because I didn't have the bread to
Right. Yeah.
to spend, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not only that, I kind of felt that I had more control over my marketing instead of relying on somebody else.
Right.
Now, again, going back to that club owner-musician relationship, had I known somebody that was potentially on a record label or something, that somebody I could trust, I probably would have said, okay, you know, $3,000 isn't going to be that hard to swallow if I know that Scott's going to be taking care of me because we're friends or something, you know?
Right.
So I went the shelf promotion route. I went through disc makers, and they have different packages. So mine is a 3-fold disc, cover and back, and with a plastic insert. And they have different packages for different levels of how many you want to buy.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Obviously, the more you buy, the less it is. The next thing you got to outweigh is how much are these going to cost you, and how much are you going to use of that money to recoup the fees for the recording, for the mixing, for the mastering. You know, what is your price point on this that helps offset your costs? That's another thing you got to look at.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And when I did mine through disc makers as well, I did the old school hard jewel case.
Yeah. Right.
And I was wrapped with a 1-page insert with the disc. I did all the artwork myself. Because I wanted to save some cash there,
Right.
you know, and they have some tools that you can use to help you do that.
Exactly.
And so people have disc makers that do that. But that's you know, as we talk about that, self-releasing, and that's what I did. You know,
I would say the difficulty about self-releasing is you have to hustle more to promote your product.
Right. So you have to be willing to spend extra time to market and promote your product.
Right. I mean, like,
either you factor that into just a wash, or you factor that into your costs.
Exactly.
Because it's your time. It depends on how you value your time with that kind of thing.
You know, just like Scott had mentioned earlier, you know, if you got all these labels and they get bombarded with all this music all the time, I mean, just think of what it's like for a radio station if you're trying to get your music played.
Right.
You know, like you're sending your disc off to like local, and I got a little bit of radio play when New Information came out, and I've heard people tell me that I've gotten some radio play on 90.3 every once in a while. They'll spin something. They do like a little section where they do local musicians. WNLV, I heard, was doing a section. John Simna has a show that he does, and he kind of features local musicians. So I mean, it's got some radio play, but not outside of Cleveland. Again, is that my fault? Well, yeah, kind of. I can, you know, should I have spent that money and had some more national promotion or regional promotion? That's a fair question.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's also, too, so, you know, if you're going to do that, if you're going to spend that money to get national promotion and to do that, you have to, in my opinion, you have to also be prepared to want to tour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So if you want to play radio play in Dallas, if you're not ready to go to Dallas to gig, then why are you paying for radio play in Dallas? You know, so you kind of have to, you know, focus on what your end goal is, right? Are you making albums because you want the recognition, you want to turn into a full-time gigging all the time musician, or is it because, in my case, and it was simply just I wanted, you know, it was time. I wanted a benchmark for myself. Here's where I'm at this time in my life. I want to put something down, you know, a recording down that's hard, that will be forever.
Right.
For me to reflect upon. You know, it was more of that for me. But, you know, and if it got out there, great. You know,
right.
So,
and let's get this out in the open right now. You're not getting rich off of your recordings. You're not. You're not making a ton of money off of your recordings. Okay.
Right. Probably not. There's a few of you out there that may, but
yeah, mostly the majority of it. Most of your money is going to be made in like your touring and stuff like that. You'll sell units at your gigs. You'll sell digital copies and stuff like that. I mean, you know, you'll sell a lot of that stuff, but. Yeah, don't like think, oh, I'm gonna make a disc and I'm gonna get like loaded off of it. No,
right. Well, we're gonna talk about one more thing about this, and then we're gonna go on to actually talk about some of these things we've been. But I wanted to just hit this real quick. Yours was all original.
Yeah, it was all original material.
So when you do original material, obviously it's your material. It's copywritten. Whether you write it and do the old school mail it to yourself, or whether you actually get it copywritten, or
actually,
once you record it.
I heard that doesn't work anymore.
I don't know if it does or not.
Yeah, I don't think you can mail it to yourself anymore. Right. I don't think that's legit anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if that is, but I know obviously you can do those things. You know, you can send it to Ask Ever BMI and get things done. And I don't know. You have to check me on this. I don't know if you know this, but if you record it, I don't know if that copyrights it or not. But anyways, so
I don't know. You know what? The way I went about it was pretty simple. I went to the U.S. copyright law website.
Okay.
Okay. I registered my music. You have to register with BMI or ASCAP, one of the two.
Right, one of the two.
I went with BMI. That's another great question you want to ask if you're recording an album. What's better, ASCAP or BMI? There's pros and cons associated with each one.
Sure.
So I mean, to be honest with you, I don't remember why I picked BMI.
No, that's fine.
I think the fees to join BMI were
a little cheaper.
A little cheaper, and I think that overall, it was a little bit more of what I was looking for in terms of my music. I can't remember. Anyways, so I went to the U.S. copyright website. I think it was like $60. And you upload, I think you can upload to like 100 songs for $50 to copyright at once. So I just made PDFs of my music. I just made a lead sheet, and I just uploaded that lead sheet, and it was copyrighted. That was it. Done.
Yeah. So
and it's on file now. So if I had any kind of infringement or I needed to prove that, I can just go to that website, bring up my account, and say, here it is. There's my tune.
Right. And in my case, when we recorded, most of our stuff was not original, right? Almost all of it. So I had to take a completely different route, right? I had to go find, whether it was ASCAP or BMI, who held it at the time.
Right.
I had to apply for, digital licenses, physical copy licenses. They're different, right? So if you're going to sell on CD Baby or iTunes or whatever, you have to guesstimate how many digital copies you're going to sell and pay for that. And if you sell more, you got to go back and So you got to go through that process. So make sure when you're dealing with copyrights that you have permission and you're doing the things the right way, because that can debunk your project in a heartbeat.
And don't let that deter you from recording copyrighted material too.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you have like, a favorite standard or something like that you want to play, I mean, by all means, go ahead and play it. I mean, just the process is tedious, but I mean, it's not anything that's gonna like deter you from actually putting out your album.
Right, and it's not super expensive. I think the highest cost I paid was 10 cents per license per whatever. So it's not super expensive. So, but just make sure you have your ducks in a row.
Exactly.
So you made your album, and we talked a little bit about this too, but we'll just kind of break it down again. You made your album, you've done all those things, and now you're promoting your album, right? So where do you want to sell them? When do you want to sell them? That kind of thing. We'll talk about cost in a second, but where and when in particular, because there's been a lot of conversation, amongst musicians, especially in Northeast Ohio, but I've seen on Facebook and in person about, Pandora, Spotify, when they pay you, you get your check and it's 0.0, it's like 1 penny, because you have 1,000 plays or whatever. So what, where do you want to promote your album, and kind of when and all those things? So you have a release date, you do that. Where do you want to put it out there?
Okay. So here's what I did with mine. When I first started promoting New Affirmation, when I went through Disc Makers, they had like an account that they actually set up through CD Baby. So you actually, for those of you who don't know what CD Baby is, CD Baby is like it's like a mini managing or marketing company for self-promoting musicians, and you can put your album up there, and you can choose to have it physical copies sent to people if they buy them off of. They create like a web page for you. It's not like a personal web page, but it's like a CD Baby web page that has your stuff on it.
Right.
You can choose to have digital downloads. You can set your price for whatever you want those to be, whether it's physical copies or digital downloads. We'll talk about that later. So it's a great place to have if you don't have an agent, or if you don't have a marketing company, or if you don't have a major label to put your music on.
Right, and Disc Makers will we talk a lot about them because they're
great service. Really great service.
They'll send CD Baby like 5 or 10 physical copies, and then they'll also help you go through that. They basically upload them for you, right? So they upload those things digitally, so they're already ready to be there. You just have to follow a couple more steps on CD Baby to kind of make sure you're in the right genre and everything for when people are searching for music on there.
Right.
But yeah, so
I did that, and then I had X number of copies made. I tried to do a lot of promotion through my website, through Facebook, through email blasts. Like I would send out an email blast, promoting my disc, getting radio play to try and get your album promoted was a big thing. The one thing that I did not do, and I was really adamant against this, and I'm not so much anymore, but I did not want my album streaming anywhere. I didn't want it on Spotify. I didn't want it on Apple Music. I didn't want it on Google Play. I didn't want it on whatever other streaming media site there is. Okay? Now here's why. I didn't want people to have access to my music and stream it all the time and get maybe a penny or two or whatever for a stream when I have all these physical copies that I want to try and get rid of. Okay, now fast forward a year or two, and it's like now it is on Apple Music and Spotify. By the way, it is. I mean, so you can go stream it right now if you wanted to. It was a different change of mindset in that, like, talking to people, it's like, okay, well, this is kind of like free promotion in a sense, right? I mean, because if you're putting it on there, people are going to be more apt to stream it than they will buy a physical copy. And if they really like it, then they will buy a physical copy or they will download it or whatever, The thing about jazz aficionados is majority of them want a physical copy. Yeah. I like having physical copies. I don't know, there's something tangible about sitting there and putting the record on and going through and reading the liner notes that I just can't get rid of. I mean, I love
it. No, absolutely. Reading the liner notes and
nostalgic thing or whatever.
And doing all that is really, really important. And I agree with you. And I was the same way. I was exactly the same way. I said no Spotify, no none of that. I never did upload it on there. But now I'm kind of on the fence about it. And it's what changed my mind was not necessarily free promotion, but even though, again, like I said, we made our album and it was more for just a benchmark. But I thought, if I made this music and I'm a musician, I really want it out there. Right? And whether I'm going to make money or not, my goal as a musician is to entertain. Really, that's what it is. And if I take myself too seriously sometimes, which we can do as musicians, and I don't mean to say don't take yourself seriously at all, but if you take yourself too seriously, or if you lose light of the fact that we're so blessed not only to have this talent, but this ability and the opportunity to entertain, I think sometimes we can miss that.
Yeah. Well,
that's why I kind of thought, maybe I was being a little stingy with that. I should just let it be out there.
Well, here's another good point that you bring up too. It's like, okay, so you and I are trying to get our music out there for people to share, and okay, maybe our first albums didn't reach as many people as we wanted to, but let's just say make the math even. Let's say it reached 25 people. Okay, and 25 people know that New Affirmation is out there. Now what I can do is I can make another album, and people will be, streaming something, and my new album will pop up, and they're like, oh wait, I remember that. I remember New Affirmation. Let me check this out. And this is why I did it, because like I had this like complete revelation. I'm like, wait a second, like how many people have I listened to that are in on the scene now that have this really cool album that I dig, and this is the first time I heard of them, and then I go back and look, and they got like 10 albums that came before this.
Right. right. And you're like, whoa, let me check this other stuff out.
Right. And I love
absolutely
album number 11, so I'm going to go buy 1 through 10 because I like that artist. And that's kind of my mentality and where I was going with putting it on Apple Music and Spotify.
Right. And I also, and it's harder to find this info on those venues, but I also, I've always been kind of enamored with, I'll find an album that I really like, and then I will look at all the sidemen and I'll go try to dig on their albums, and see what they've got going on, and keep branching out you know, what I listen to in my collection and stuff. And then that's a good way to do it too, you know. So you're listening. Oh, they have this. Oh, I didn't know they had that album. Oh, this person was on drums. And
Yeah, right.
Let me go check him out because I really like what he's doing here. So yeah. So it's a lot of fun to kind of lose yourself in doing that. So
Yeah.
So
well, one thing I did too, and I don't know, this may be like stupid, selfish, whatever. I would go on like Twitter and Instagram, and I would find like these really popular people that would have like millions of people following them, and I would always post the link to their page.
Right.
Like I'd go to Kim Kardashian's page and I'd post the link to New Affirmation on YouTube.
Right.
On iTunes rather. I don't know. Like, or I'd find a trending topic that was like on Twitter, like something that was trending,
Right.
and I would put New Affirmation link up there, and I would put that hashtag on there. I mean, or like stupid stuff like that. I was just like, well, what do I got to lose?
Hey, what are you gonna lose, right? Yeah. I mean, it may work. I'm
just gonna throw it out there. You know, this lady's got 5.3 million followers. You know, I mean, I gotta at least hit somebody in there, right?
Yeah, somebody's gonna be like, "What is this?" And then we'd be like, "What? Why did they put this trash?"
I don't know. Probably no, it's funny because like people are like, "Oh, you're a whore for doing that."
You're trolling. So, yeah, no, I understand. So we've been talking about this kind of a lot then with so. Again, how much should they cost? And I'm going to kind of roll this into with the next one here, Mark. So, how much should they cost? And should you expect to lose money, make money, or break even on your recording venture here?
So, how much should the actual physical album cost?
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking? Okay,
Yeah.
Well, I base my cost off of the standard cost of what everything usually is 99.9% of the times, which is a physical copy is like $15.
Right.
Okay.
And digital is
digital is $9.99 or $10, right?
Right.
So if you go to iTunes right now and you look at tracks, like certain popular tracks are going to be like $1.29, but majority of tracks are going to be like 99 cents. An album's going to be in the ballpark of $9.99 for a complete download for an album.
Right.
Okay. I kind of looked at it this way. If I was price pointing it, there are 10 tunes on here, $1 a tune, so $9.99, whatever. For physical copies, that's kind of up to you. I've had pretty lengthy discussions with other musicians about this. Should I charge 15? Should I charge 10? Should I charge 20? Okay, well, you know, I had one guy who was very adamant about me selling my CD for $10. And I'm like, why do you want to... Why are you keep telling me to sell it for $10? He's like, because a $10 bill is the easiest thing to give people. You don't have to make change for it. You have a $10 bill, you can do it in two ways. You can do it 10 or 2 5s. Here it is, boom, done. That's
right.
it.
So he's thinking bigger picture. He's thinking, ease of payment, and so he's coming from a different perspective.
Right. Whereas if I charge $15, somebody hands me a 20, I have to have $5 change on me all the time.
Right.
Okay, that makes total sense. I get it.
Right.
Do I want to charge 20? Well, you know, you got to look at that. People are going to be like, wow, you know what? I just bought a CD 2 days ago and it was only $12.99 or $15 and you're charging 20.
Or, hey, I just paid $20 to get into the gig. Now he wants another $20 for the disc.
Well, that's a good point. I'll touch on that in a second.
Yeah.
So I decided to go with like selling mine off of my website at markrusso.com for $15, and that $15 is actually includes the shipping. Okay, so for $15 via PayPal, I'll ship it to anywhere in the United States. Now, if you see me on a gig, I usually charge $10 for them by myself. Now, it depends on where I go, because some venues will sell discs for you, but they'll upcharge them a couple bucks because of the venue cost. So the venue wants to make a little bit of money on you too. So, you know, if I play at a venue and you came and saw me, I would probably charge you $10. If you went and saw the guy at the bar and said, hey, I want to buy his album, he might charge you $15. Okay? Now, to go back to what Scott just said about paying $20 to get into a gig and another $20 for a CD, a lot of times when I do my gigs, I package them together.
Right.
Okay? I mean, who doesn't love a deal?
A deal.
You know, who doesn't love a tiered deal? Oh, wait a second. I can see you and get a CD for $30 or $25 or whatever. And that goes back to the club owner. If you can negotiate that kind of stuff with him, if he's going to make his money on the door charge and you're going to make your money, I mean, it's, you know, it's working together.
Absolutely.
And you might sell you might sell some discs. How much do you want for a disc? Okay, well, I need to get at least $10 a disc. Well, I need to get at least $12 at the door.
Right.
Okay, so what if we say $20 gets you in the door and it gets you a CD?
Right.
Or 25, whatever. You know, that's the kind of the marketing mentality you got to kind of have for this. You got to figure out a way to sell your product. I mean, think about what you buy every day.
Absolutely,
you know?
Absolutely. No,
what draws you to that?
Packaging it like that is really smart. You see people do that on Kickstarter.
I mean, I'm more
where they're packaging different tier
right,
levels.
exactly.
You get a copy of the disc, copy of it signed, whatever, you know.
Right.
So, but doing it at the gig too is a great way to do that, to make sure you sell some product.
Right. And like with mine, I thought about doing the whole Kickstarter program thing too, and it was like I had everything ready and I was ready to click go, and I decided not to. I'm like, man, the market's so flooded with everybody trying to ask for help with their CD project. It's like, who wants to fund another CD project?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So what I actually did marketing wise, I actually went to big businesses and I asked them if they wanted to be donors in return for free marketing and publicity and promotion of the company that way. And it worked out very beneficial for me. Can I do it again for the next project? I don't know. I'd have to try it and see.
Right. Some you may be able to approach again. Some you may want to.
Right. I might be able to get some people to some of the companies that I approached to jump on the second project. They might be like, nah, that's all right. You know, and you can't be discouraged by that.
Right.
So you said,
should you
lose money?
Lose money? Should you expect to make money? Should you expect to break even?
Well, ultimate goal is you always want to make money, right?
Sure.
I mean, we always want to make money on things that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, for me, I kind of felt like what you did. Like I'm gonna put these discs out, and I'm gonna make 1,000 copies, and I'm gonna sell 500 by the end of the year.
Right.
Well, there's still a good amount sitting down my basement. So, and that when I was talking to friends about that, they're like, don't get that many, you're not going to push them. They're hard to push now because everybody's digital. And I was like, the more I had, the less the price was kind of like, Right. I mean, it was like a big swing between 500 CDs and 1,000 in terms of price.
Right. Yeah.
So right now, am I looking to break even? Yes. Breaking even for me would be good. Right. Am I losing money? Not really. I'm not really losing money. I have something that's tangible for me, and is a benchmark of where I stood at the time. It was a great learning process for me.
Right.
It was a great experience for me. I have a lot that I can take away from it.
A lot of value in that first.
Yeah. So I mean, do I look at it as a waste of money? No, I don't. Not really.
Yeah. I kind of feel, like, listen, if I can make money, fantastic. If I break even, that's fine. If I lose a little bit of money, or if I don't think of it as losing money but gaining value, in those experiences, that's fine too. My goal, and I think, again, you have to be realistic in your goals. Do you have a product that you really feel is going to be a chart topper and that people are going to be knocking your door down? If you do, they're probably already knocking your door down. Mm-hmm. Right? So they're probably already there. If they're, in most cases, if they're not, then just make sure you're realistic with your expectations. Don't and I don't mean to be negative, but just be realistic. So that way when it's all over and said and done, that you're happy with everything that went down. So a really good product, a really good polished product is going to sell itself basically. And if you're doing the promotion from a realistic point of view and you're reaching people and you're out playing and stuff, you're gonna push your album. Like with New Affirmation now, it's been out 2 years. When I go to a gig, I sell 2-for-1 copies. I'll give 2 for the 2 for 15. Right. So at least I know that I'm still making a little bit of money on it and I'm getting my music out there. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I'll do like every once in a while I'll do like a jazz trivia thing on Facebook or Instagram, and the first person to give me the right answer, I'll send them a copy, of my CD or a digital copy or whatever, something like that. So, disc makers makes it really cool. They make these cards that have digital downloads on there, so you can pass those out. You can give those away, for like trivia things. I kind of do that at gigs sometimes. I'll ask trivia questions to see how many jazz aficionados are in the audience and things like that. So, I mean, those are good. They're fun ways to get rid of your music.
Yeah.
Or not get rid of it, but get your music out there. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. Those were kind of the other topics. I wanted to go through some final thoughts with you. I have one that kind of came up with why we were talking about this so are you a fan or not a fan? And there's a lot of musicians that are on the fence about this with like Facebook Live and Facebook Living your events, whether it be maybe you just want to do a portion of, or maybe you want to do a whole set. Are you a fan of that or not a fan of that? Because and I'll tell you kind of why I'm asking this, because I'm a fan of it. I think that, again, it gets some music out there, especially for people who aren't in your area, who just literally, listen, I live in, wherever, but I'm friends with you on Facebook, and I would like to see you play, and there's no way I can get up there to see you because I live in Orlando. Or it might, in turn, really interest some people who say, we really should go out, and go check that out. Let's go ahead and do that. Like, the club in Akron, Ohio, Blue Jazz, they're doing that now as long as you give them permission to. They're doing it and trying to get a draw to people. But I know a couple of folks, and we're not mentioning names, but I know a couple of folks who do not want their events Facebook Live. They say they're people need to come out and support live music, and we can't just keep giving them things for free, like things like on Spotify and this now this. And so, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, I'm going to approach it from two ways. Mm-hmm. So you asked, am I a fan? Yes and no. No, because when I did my CD release, I Facebook Live the whole thing, and I had people that said that they were going to come that didn't come. So I was like,
right.
Okay, so that was my negative side of that. Okay, in hindsight, I probably should have not streamed the whole gig, maybe pieces of it.
Right.
Maybe, I'm going to stream the second set, or I'm going to stream the first 3 songs. You need to come out and check out the rest. Okay.
Right.
2020 is hindsight, right?
Right.
Or hindsight's 2020.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, do I think it's bad? And I am not against it at all. I think it's pretty cool. I think, as a culture, we embrace technology.
Right.
And I think it's a great way, like you said, to get people down there. Would I stream my whole thing if I did it again? No. Lesson learned. So I would stream parts of it. I would stream some of it. I would say maybe, okay, I'm going to stream, we hit at 8 o'clock, but I'm going to start streaming at, 9. Or I'm going to stream the first set, and I might save all my good material for the second set. Hey, come on down to the club kind of thing. Yeah. I do think that it's great for promoting yourself, though, getting your stuff out. I do agree that people need to get out and go experience live music, because watching it through a live stream is not the same as being there.
Absolutely not.
And totally, in no way, shape, or form is the same as being there. The energy is not the same. Mm-hmm. But the reason I'm a fan of it is, and this is why things are going this way. I mean, if you look at Small's Jazz Club, they've been doing a live feed for 5 years now. Mm-hmm. I think something like that.
It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
For a while there, it was free, and you could tune in and you could watch certain parts of the set. Right. And you're watching Heavy Cats from New York, playing at Smalls. Then they shut it down, and then they made it a membership thing where you paid like a yearly membership, and you could not only access like the live stream, but you got all the archives from all the years back, so you can go through and watch all that stuff. That's really cool, because it's like pick and choose anybody you want, and you can go through and look at that. Now I heard it's not like a paid membership, like only certain events live stream. I don't know. I haven't watched it in a while.
Right. And there's all kinds of...
There's benefits to it. I remember watching a live stream of the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra play with Kenny Garrett. And I'm a big fan of both Kenny Garrett and Wynton. So I couldn't be on 60th and Broadway.
Right.
You know, so I watched the whole live stream, which is really cool. Okay, was Winton probably upset that I didn't pay, you know, $60 for a ticket? I don't know. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I don't know.
Right.
But
right.
You know, that if you look at it from that way, yeah, you do get to see a lot of music that you
normally
wouldn't be.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pros and cons about it. I'm you know, as a audience member, I like it because I can go watch things that I'm not able to physically be there for. As a performer, I don't necessarily dig it all the time because for all the reasons we've talked about. And I think the most important thing in I'll tell you, and I don't know when this is going to occur, but little Facebook inside information here that I've uncovered is there's a possibility that if there's a live stream of an actual event, right, that people had to pay to get into, that there will be restrictions on who can watch the live stream. It's basically going to be based off of your location. So if your location is, you know, Akron and you want to live stream something in Akron, you won't be able to do so if it's at a club, right?
Yeah.
Or if you want to watch it from your home, right? But if it's in New York, then you'll be able to do so.
If it's outside a certain radius of the club, you're saying. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
right.
Or you can, and this would be farther down the road, you could pay to watch it. That's going to come down the road in Facebook. I don't know when, but it's just some inside information that I picked up. So, but
sounds like a great idea, actually.
I think it is too, because there are a lot of people who are complaining about it. And the one, you know, kicker for this is people who are in the club, not just the club live streaming it, right? But people who are in your audience
live streaming it as well,
trying to live stream it. So and there's a whole other process of them trying to figure out, you know, okay, if the phone location is on and it's within a, you know, 2-3 mile radius, just to make a broad stroke, you know, they're gonna not allow you to live stream anything at that time if they feel like you're in that place. So that's dicey, and there's a lot of other things that go on with that. But you know, it's one of those 6 of 1, you know, because you like it to be there to promote, but you got to be careful. So I know in the future, for me, I'm gonna tell club owners or anybody in the audience, I'm gonna just tell them flat out on the microphone, if you want to live stream a small portion of, you know, this to try to help us get some friends down here, we'd greatly appreciate it. Please do not stream more than one full tune at a time, you know, or you know, don't do a whole set.
Yeah.
And just ask that question and then move on, you know. But that was kind of my final thought, because we were talking about promoting different things, and that one is, you know, a way to promote, but can be tricky.
Well, that's another thing too. You got to make sure that you're cool with the club owner too. You know, I don't know if how a club owner would police that.
Right.
But in situations where I've been in clubs, you know, I've seen people taking video and things like that.
Right.
I don't necessarily mind that.
Yeah.
You know, there's a moment there that they're trying to capture that really moved them.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
And I appreciate that, and that's kind of, you know, if that's what it takes, and I've succeeded at my goal of trying to get my music out to people.
Right, and being right, and right, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but the way things are going in society and the way things are going with technology, it's definitely a game changer. You know, for how to get your music out there and things. I mean, I've seen like Esperanza Spalding just did a whole Facebook Live album.
Yeah, I saw that.
You know,
yeah,
she recorded a live album all on Facebook Live, and it was like, I don't know, like 8 or 9 hours long or something like that. I mean, it was like intense, but it was like the whole recording was live streamed. Yeah.
It's a whole different ball of wax. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's something to think about. So, you got anything else, or?
No, man. Thanks for doing this.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks to Mark Russo here for being on another episode of All Things Music. His album New Affirmation, markrusso.com. Go check it out. It's a great listen. The next episode will be here in 3-4 weeks, and that's going to be about the importance or unimportance of of community band, community choir organizations, right? Community orchestra organizations. Bands, choirs, orchestras of people who don't do this for a living or don't really aspire to do it for a living, who get together and play and provide the community with some live music. The guest for that is going to be a good friend of mine, Greg Hillis, who is a French hornist. He's a music educator. He's also the musical director of the Snowbelt Musical Arts Association in Lake County here in Ohio. They have a concert band.
Appropriately titled.
They have they have a concert band and they have a youth band and hopefully soon they're going to be having a jazz band. That's going to be really fun. We'll see him next time. So thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it and we hope to see you soon.
Later, guys and gals.